My phone rang at 9:47 a.m. on a Thursday. I was sitting in my attorney's office in downtown Seattle, reviewing the final documents for what would be the most important decision of my life. When I saw "Dad" on the caller ID, I almost didn't answer. But something told me I should. "Riley, you need to come to the house today. We're having a family meeting about the business." My father's voice had that tone, the one that meant he'd already made a decision and was just informing me of it, not consulting me. "What about the business?" I asked, though I already knew. I'd seen this coming for months. "Your brother is ready to take over as CEO. It's time for you to step aside and let him lead. We need you here by 3 p.m. to sign the transfer documents." I looked across the desk at my attorney, Margaret Torres, who was watching me with knowing eyes. She'd warned me this was coming. We'd been preparing for weeks. "Step aside," I repeated flatly. "From the company I've been running for 6 years? The company that was failing when I took over and is now worth $47 million? Riley, don't be dramatic. This is about what's best for the family. Your brother needs this opportunity. You're successful enough, you don't need to hold on to the CEO position out of ego." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Dad, I'm literally sitting in my attorney's office right now. We're reviewing documents." There was a pause. "What documents?" "I'll see you at 3 p.m. We can discuss it then." I hung up before he could respond. Margaret leaned forward. "Are you ready for this? Once we file these documents, there's no going back. I've been ready for 6 years. Let's do it. My name is Riley Nakamura, and I'm 32 years old. 6 years ago, my father called me home from my corporate finance job in New York with an urgent plea. The family manufacturing business was dying. My grandfather had built Nakamura Industrial Supply from nothing in 1968, creating a successful distribution company for construction materials. When my father took over in 1998, things were good for a while. But by 2018, the company was hemorrhaging money. Outdated systems, poor management decisions, refusal to adapt to digital ordering systems, it was a disaster. Annual revenue had dropped from $28 million to $11 million. They were 3 months from bankruptcy. My father called me, desperate. "Riley, I need your help. Please. Come home and save your grandfather's legacy." So I did. I quit my 6-figure job in Manhattan, moved back to Seattle, and took over as CEO of a dying company. It wasn't a gift. It wasn't handed to me. I fought for every inch of progress. I spent the first 6 months doing what my father should have done years earlier. Fired 40% of the staff who were dead weight and rehired with people who understood modern business. Implemented a complete digital transformation, online ordering, automated inventory, customer relationship management systems. Renegotiated every supplier contract, cutting costs by 23%. Diversified our product line beyond just construction materials. Developed relationships with major contractors and developers my father had ignored. The first year, we stabilized. The second year, we started growing. By year 3, we were profitable again. By year 6, we'd hit $47 million in annual revenue, more than the company had ever made, even in its peak. I worked 80-hour weeks. I sacrificed relationships, social life, my own health. I poured everything into saving my grandfather's legacy. And my father? He stayed on as chairman of the board, a ceremonial title that meant he showed up to quarterly meetings, offered opinions no one asked for, and took credit for the turnaround whenever anyone would listen. My brother Cameron, 29, had been working at the company in various roles: sales, operations, logistics. He was competent but not exceptional. Good at following directions but not at creating strategy. He'd grown comfortable with the success I'd built, assuming it would always continue. And my father had always made it clear, the company should go to his son. Not his daughter. Even though I was the one who'd saved it. For 6 years, I'd told myself it didn't matter. That I was doing this for my grandfather's legacy, not for recognition. That the satisfaction of success was enough. But it wasn't. Because my father never acknowledged what I'd done. Never thanked me. Never recognized that without me, there would be no company for Cameron to take over. He just expected me to hand it over when the time came. Because that's what daughters do, they work hard, achieve success, and then step aside for their brothers. 3 months ago, my father started dropping hints. Cameron's ready for more responsibility. We should start thinking about succession planning. A CEO position is a lot of pressure for a woman. That last comment was what made me call Margaret Torres. Because here's what my father didn't know. When I took over as CEO, I'd negotiated something crucial. The company had been on the verge of bankruptcy. The board was desperate. They needed someone who could save it, and they knew I was capable. So in exchange for taking the job, for moving across the country and dedicating my life to this company, I'd negotiated a contract that gave me 35% equity stake that vested over 6 years. Those 6 years were up last month. I now own 35% of Nakamura Industrial Supply. My father owned 45%. Cameron owned 15%. The remaining 5% was split among other board members and early investors. But here's what my father really didn't know. Over the past 6 years, while I was saving the company, I'd been quietly negotiating with the other board members and minority shareholders. I'd built relationships. Proven my worth. Shown them that I was the reason for the company's success. And I'd secured proxy votes from enough of them to give me control. I didn't just own 35%. I controlled 52%. So when my father called that morning to tell me to step aside and sign over the company to my brother, I was already sitting in my attorney's office, finalizing documents that would do the exact opposite. I wasn't stepping aside. I was taking full control. At 2:45 p.m., I arrived at my parents' house in Bellevue. My father was in his study, Cameron beside him, both looking confident and comfortable. My mother sat in the corner, her usual role as silent observer. "Riley, good. You're here." My father gestured to a chair. "Let's make this quick. We have the transfer documents ready. You'll sign over your CEO position and majority decision-making authority to Cameron. You'll stay on as..." "No." He blinked. "Excuse me?" "No, I won't be signing anything. Actually, you'll be signing something." I pulled out the folder Margaret had prepared. Set it on his desk. "What is this?" my father asked, not opening it. "That is notification that as of today, I am exercising my rights as majority shareholder of Nakamura Industrial Supply. I'm removing you from the board effective immediately and restructuring the company's leadership." The color drained from his face. "Majority shareholder? You own 35%. I own 35% directly. I control 52% through proxy agreements with other shareholders. All legally documented, all signed, all filed with the appropriate authorities this morning." Cameron's jaw dropped. "What the hell, Riley? For 6 years, I've run this company. I saved it from bankruptcy. I tripled the revenue. I built it into something successful. And instead of acknowledging that, Dad's been planning to push me out so you could take over something you didn't build. This is ridiculous," my father sputtered. "You can't just, this is a family business." "Yes, it is. A family business that my work saved. A business that would not exist without me. And I'm not letting you steal it from me to give to Cameron just because he has a Y chromosome." "Steal? I gave you the opportunity. You called me begging for help when you'd run it into the ground. I gave up my career, my life in New York, my relationships, everything, to save your legacy. And your response is to kick me out and hand it to Cameron? No. That's not happening." My mother spoke for the first time. "Riley, your father just wants what's best for Cameron. What about what's best for me? What about what I've earned? What about the fact that I'm the reason there's still a company?" "You're being selfish," my father said, his voice rising. This is about family. No, this is about you being unable to accept that your daughter is better at business than your son. That I saved something you destroyed. That I deserve to keep what I've built. I stood up, leaving the documents on his desk. You have 48 hours to vacate your office at the company. Cameron, you'll report to me as COO starting Monday. We can work together, or you can leave. Your choice. But I'm not debating this. The papers are filed. The board has been notified. It's done. You'll regret this, my father said, his voice shaking with rage. You're tearing this family apart. No, Dad. You tore it apart when you decided to reward 6 years of my work by pushing me out for Cameron. I'm just making sure you can't. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. The next 48 hours were chaos. My father called an emergency board meeting, trying to override my decision. But I'd done my homework. Every board member except him voted in my favor. He was outvoted 6-1. He tried to challenge my proxy agreements in court. His attorney filed an injunction. My attorney shut it down in less than 4 hours with documentation proving everything was legal and binding. He called family members, trying to rally them against me. My aunt, my uncle, even my grandmother, all got calls from him claiming I'd betrayed the family and stolen the company. Some believed him. Cut me off. Told me I was ungrateful and power-hungry. But others asked questions. Wanted to hear my side. And when I explained what I'd actually done, how I'd saved a dying company, how I'd been planning to be pushed out, how I'd protected myself legally, many of them understood. My brother Cameron took the hardest line. He called me 3 days after the confrontation. You've destroyed everything, he said, his voice cold. Dad built that company. Grandpa built that company. Dad nearly destroyed it. I saved it. You're delusional. You think because you made some business decisions, you own the company? I think because I own 35% and control another 17% through legal proxy agreements, and because I've been CEO for 6 years and tripled the revenue, yes, I have the right to maintain control of what I've built. What you've built? He laughed bitterly. It's our family legacy. Then why didn't you save it 6 years ago when it was failing? Why didn't Dad fix it before calling me home to clean up his mess? You both sat back while I did the work, and now you're angry that I'm not handing you the results. You're going to regret this, Riley. This family will never forgive you. Maybe not. But at least I won't spend the rest of my life watching you and Dad take credit for something I built. He hung up on me. The following Monday, I walked into the Nakamura Industrial Supply office as the officially recognized CEO and majority shareholder. My father's office had been cleared out over the weekend. He'd taken everything, even the photos of my grandfather that should have stayed. Cameron showed up at noon. We met in my office, the CEO office that should have been mine all along. Are we doing this? He asked, standing in the doorway. That's up to you. I need a COO. You know the operations side of the business. We can work together, or you can leave. But if you stay, you report to me. No undermining, no going to Dad behind my back, no challenging my decisions in front of the team. He stared at me for a long moment. You really think you can do this? Run the company without Dad? I've been running it without him for 6 years. He just didn't realize it. Cameron sat down. He's calling you every name in the book. Mom cries every time someone brings up your name. The whole family thinks you've betrayed us. I protected myself from being betrayed. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. I didn't steal anything. I secured what I'd earned. If Dad wanted Cameron to run this company, he should have had Cameron save it 6 years ago. We worked out an agreement. Cameron would stay on as COO. He'd manage day-to-day operations and report to me. He'd get a significant salary increase and a path to earn more equity, if he performed. But I was CEO. I made final decisions. And if he couldn't handle that, he could walk. "I'm not happy about this," he said finally. "But I'm also not stupid enough to walk away from a $47 million company because my ego is bruised. I'll stay. But don't expect us to be close. I expect us to be professional. That's enough." 3 months after taking control, the company hit $50 million in annual revenue. I'd been negotiating a major contract with a national retail chain that would expand our distribution network into 12 new states. The deal closed, and suddenly we were on track for $65 million next year. The board was thrilled. The employees were energized. Even Cameron admitted the company was doing better than ever. But my father refused to speak to me. My mother sent occasional texts, always about how hurt Dad was, how I destroyed the family, how I should apologize and make things right. I responded once, "I will not apologize for securing what I earned. Dad can be hurt that his plan to push me out failed, but I won't feel guilty for protecting myself." 6 months after the takeover, my father called. First time in half a year. "Riley, we need to talk." "About what?" "About the company. About what you've done with it." "You mean how I've grown it to $52 million and secured contracts that will take us to $70 million next year?" Silence. "Then, I want to meet. Just us. No lawyers, no Cameron, no drama. Just talk." I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a coffee shop near the office. He looked older. Tired. The past 6 months had aged him. "You've done well," he said after we'd sat down. "The company's thriving." "Yes. I was wrong. I waited. I was wrong to try to push you out. Wrong to assume Cameron should lead just because he's my son. Wrong to dismiss what you'd accomplished." He looked down at his coffee. I think I've always been uncomfortable with how successful you are. You're smarter than me, better at business than I ever was. And instead of being proud of that, I felt threatened by it. So you tried to replace me?" "Yes. And I was wrong. It was what I'd wanted to hear for 6 years. But now that I had it, it felt hollow." "Why now?" I asked. "Why apologize now, after 6 months?" "Because I've been watching what you've done with the company. The new contracts, the expansion, the growth. And I realized, you're not just keeping it alive. You're making it into something bigger than it ever was. Something bigger than I could have made it. And that's the only reason you're here? Because the numbers are good?" He looked up at me. "No. I'm here because I miss my daughter. I miss having you in my life. And I hate that my pride and my outdated ideas about who should run a business cost me my relationship with you." I didn't know what to say. "I'm not asking you to put me back on the board," he continued. "I'm not asking for control. I'm just asking if we can find a way back to being father and daughter." "I don't know if we can," I said honestly. "You hurt me. You tried to take away something I'd spent 6 years building. You chose Cameron over me based on nothing but gender. I know. And I'm sorry. Truly sorry." We sat in silence for a moment.